Part 237. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2365. Zhao Liaolang on the side said, "Don't think about it, I know why, because you guys are rich. Those spice gems and jade that your niece sold in Beijing recently, who didn't know that you brought them back from the western regions?" Bai Shan said, "Didn't you also take one?" Zhao Liaolang said, "How much do I have? And the only thing that can be taken out is the little spice." Man Bao, "Hey, with the money you gave, we bought a lot of tourmaline and crystals for you, as well as spices and pearls." Zhao Liaolang sighed, "Don't mention it, I just took it home and quietly gave some to my daughter-in-law and mother. The next day my sister-in-law knew about it, and they all spoke up. They were all kept by my daughter-in-law, who said they were going to make beads for my daughter." Zhao Liaolang stretched out two fingers and said, "My daughter is only 2 years old, and her hair is just that long. Not to mention wearing pearl flowers, she can't even tie it up." Everyone burst out laughing. However, even if he could only sell a little spice, Zhao Liaolang quickly recovered his money and saved a sum of money from his private house. He has only been so generous recently. Although he may lose 20 taels of silver at this moment, he only felt distressed for a moment. He waved his hand generously, "Forget it, it's useless to tangle, do you go there with me to play, many of our classmates are there, but it's a pity that Feng Zonping and the others won't come, otherwise we'll get together." Man Bao declined and said, "We're going to take them to a horse race." Zhao Liaolang was stunned, "It really compares?" Man Bao nodded, "Of course." Zhao Liaolang just glanced at their 10 maidservants, all of them were good looking, although they weren't amazing, but they looked good among the maids. The most important thing is that they all have some characteristics of Westerners. Some have high noses or deep eyes, and some have blue eyes, like a puddle of water. If these 10 people appeared on the field together, it would attract attention. But Man Bao didn't plan to let them play together, but 10 people divided into 5 groups to sign up, and only 2 people played in one session. There are 3 kinds of people who race horses in the arena. One is those who specialize in horse racing for money, and they are women. There are also many people who are engaged in this line of work. As long as they give money, they can go on the horse race. The ladies and ladies onlookers will occasionally bet on horses, the money given by the race course, the money given by the guests, and occasionally the feud between the ladies and the ladies will invite them to race horses. These are income. But such opportunities are rare. There is also a horse race organized by the guests who come to the race course. They find people and race by themselves. Basically, they are compared with people from the same class. If there are people who are not from their class, they are either bullying or being bullied. Bully. The last one is like Joe Man, who doesn't play in person himself, but directly lets the next person come out to play. Regardless of being a boudoir, many people like to let their maids learn riding skills. Coming to the race course to compete is one of the ways to verify riding skills. This time there was another race organized by the race course, not for bounties, but for the sake of competing and showing off their abilities. There were also many people who signed up for the race. Some of the young ladies were interested and went out on their own, but they could accept the comparison with commoners, but they would not be compared with a maid. The race course also paid attention to the numbering, so the last competition was finished, and Lu Xiaoniang was angry. When the beating horse came over, the cakes and flowers took their numbers and went up to line up. Lady Lu was going to take a rest in the back court, but she was startled when she saw the people standing outside the fence, and then ran up on her horse and shouted, "Fifth brother, it's really you." Seeing her startled, Lu Huan immediately pulled up his sleeves to cover his face, and shouted, "You're wrong, I'm number 2 in the family." Madame Lu was furious, and while riding on the horse, she threw him with a small whip and shouted, "You are ranked second, then where are my brothers and them ranked?" If you dare to deny it, I will tell my grandfather and grandmother when I go back. After calling her, she felt wrong. No, you were locked in the study by your grandfather to study, and you were not allowed to go out until the exam. Why did you play in the race course? Seeing that Lady Liu's female companions were all looking here curiously, and someone even came over on horseback, Man Bao said to Lu Huan, "Hurry up and confess, more and more people are coming here. Bai Shan, you can't hide it unless you can escape." Bai Erlang and Yin he also said, "You admit it?" For the sake of a few friends, Lu Huan had no choice but to deny it, so he angrily put down his sleeves and said, "That's right, it's me, what can you do?" Lady Lu. Man Bao tried to bribe her with flowers. "Little Lady Lu, how about I give you 2 peony flowers?" "Fantastic." Lady Lu hesitated for a moment and asked, "Is your peonies in bloom now?" Man Bao said, "If you want it, I will have someone send you 2 at night." "There are not many, but there are still 2. Thinking of the flower branches sold by Joe Man in the past 2 years, Lu Xiaoniang nodded. If she can go out for a parade with peony flowers on the Lantern Festival, even if it is not the only one in the capital, it must be a rare one. So Lu Xiaoniang glared at Lu Huan, turned her horse's head around to find her friends, and ran back after a while, standing directly beside Lu Huan to watch the battle together. Lu Huan looked at her. "What are you doing here? Why don't you go with your friends?" Lu Xiaoniang said, "They don't need me to accompany them. I have to watch you and prevent you from causing trouble. Otherwise, I will have to eat and hang when I go back." "Lu Huan, am I the one who caused the trouble?" "You are." Mrs. Lu gave him a contemptuous look and said, "I know why there are still very few women willing to kiss you after you have been granted the title of County Baron." Lu Huan's heart was pricked, but he still asked, "Why?" "Because you don't have a great future in the eyes of your future father-in-law and mother-in-law." Lu Huan. Lu Xiaoniang continued, "Fifth brother, I'm already engaged." "You are older than me, but you haven't been engaged yet." Lu Huan said, "I am the youngest male in our family. My grandmother said that I matured late, so what's wrong with getting married 2 years later?" Lu Xiaoniang gave him a contemptuous look, then hummed twice, and turned to look at the people on the race course. Lu Huan was in a hurry and couldn't help but turn his head and speak ill of Bai Erlang openly. "She is very annoying." Bai Erlang nodded, also feeling that she was disgusting. When Lu Xiaoniang saw it, she was so angry that she gasped out from her nose. She wanted to go to Man Bao to complain, but she saw that she was watching the arena seriously. She opened her mouth and could only turn her head to the other side to talk to Zhou Liru. "Isn't it really annoying for my cousin to play with you?" Lu Huan turned his head and stared at her, with the aura of biting her to death if she dared to say it. Zhou Liru couldn't help but said politely, "Are you okay?" Lady Lu explained automatically, "That's annoying." Lu Huan stared at the two of them, and Zhou Liru immediately said, "This is what she said, I didn't mean it." Lu Xiaoniang turned her head and glared at Lu Huan, "You threaten people. See you at 10 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl." Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2366. Lu Xiaoniang caught him and preached, "Grandfather and grandmother have said more than once that our family is not allowed to be playful and not allowed to bully others outside." Lu Huan was so annoyed that he dragged Bai Erlang and was about to change positions. Bai Shan and the 3 of them didn't speak, but watched the arena seriously. Started the second lap, and directly dumped the person behind him for a long time. At the last lap, she took the lead in rushing to the finish line. Man Bao cheered, and even Zheng Shi got up from her seat excitedly. Lu Xiaoniang was also attracted to her eyes, so she stopped talking about it. She looked at the person who crossed the finish line first and asked, "Who is this? She looks weird. Is it a dancer from the western regions, or a businessman?" "Female." Man Bao proudly said, "It's mine." Lady Lu couldn't help looking at her. "You brought it back from the western regions." Man Bao nodded, how is it, not bad. Seeing that Zibing had already received the bounty for this game, Lu Xiaoniang nodded and said, that's right, what else can she do? Man Bao said, I can also dance the sword. Lu Xiaoniang's eyes lit up and she couldn't help but say, when will she give us a sword dance as a reward? No problem, I'll mention it to her when she's in a good mood. Lu Xiaoniang was envious and asked, are there many such women in the western regions? Man Bao wasn't sure, a lot. Can you sell me too? Zibing, who had just come up with the bounty, was stunned when he heard this, as if struck by lightning. Man Bao smiled and said, that won't work, I promised them not to sell them anymore, and they will marry in the future. Lu Xiaoniang said, I will also let them marry in the future, and the price is not a problem. Man Bao glanced at Lu Huan, and seeing that he didn't mean to interfere, he shook his head firmly. Speaking of which, this person was given to Lu Huan at first, but Lu Huan gave it to her because he didn't want it. Seeing that Man Bao was unwilling to let go, Lu Xiaoniang felt rather regretful, and she was not good at being difficult for others. Zibing breathed a sigh of relief, took the money bag and stepped forward, knelt in front of Man Bao respectfully and said, Sir, this is the money won by the slave. Man Bao smiled and said, since you won, you can take it yourself. Zibing answered happily, kowtowed before putting away the money bag, turned around and stood behind Man Bao. Lu Xiaoniang was still regretting, and then she saw that in the next few games, 2 women from the western regions entered the arena. Even if they couldn't win the first place, there would always be one who could win the second or third place. Name, once or twice is not enough, 4 times in a row, foreign women have won the ranking, and the onlookers can't help but discuss. Whose servant is this, or a businesswoman or a dancer brought by a caravan? I think they are still wearing the same clothes. It doesn't look like clothes from the western regions, is it someone's servant? Who can come up with 8 dancers like this in one go? It's not 8, it's 10. Do you think there are still people lining up to pick horses? Really, hey, who is so ignorant, is it here to spoil the game or show it off? The movement on this side quickly attracted people from the stands on the other side of the arena, and everyone came to watch the fun. Zhao Liaolang also rushed over with a group of people, and at a glance, he knew who was making noise, so he went straight to Bai Shan and the others. It's lively, they're betting on it, they're all betting on this one. Who will win the championship from the western regions, do you want to bet? Bai Shan and the others shook their heads together. Zhao Liaolang said, there are several kinds of bets, one of which is whether they can still get the ranking. Several people still shook their heads. Zhao Liaolang said, this is very simple, you just need to let them put some water. Man Bao, is it the same as playing polo and match fixing? Zhao Liaolang, we never play match fixing. Man Bao glanced at him and said, my girl won't run a fake horse, it's a matter of integrity. Zhao Liaolang, I can make money. Man Bao, a gentleman loves money in a proper way. Don't tell me you let me run a fake horse. It's not enough to just gamble. Besides, do you think I'm short of money? Zhao Liaolang was choked up by the last sentence and couldn't find anything to say for a long time. Zhao Liaolang could only ask, how are the 2 of them equestrian? After thinking about it, Man Bao said, it seems to be not bad. They also have to ride horses since childhood. After all, there are no people who can't horse. Occasionally, distinguished guests will let them perform and take them to hunt, so they will. When it comes to equestrianism, they are even more powerful than Man Bao. Zhao Liaolang thought about it, and then took out another 20 taels to the servant, and asked him to bet on them to win. He felt a little regretful, I took a lot of risk in this move. If they win, I will earn less, and if they lose, I will lose all. Bai Shan glanced at him and said, you don't have to gamble. Bai Erlang said, you still owe us the money, and we will pay it back when we return from the western regions. Zhao Liaolang waved his hand vigorously. Don't worry, I will give it to you when I sell the last box of spices in my hand. Bai Shan couldn't help but ask him, I heard you sell your spices for a lot of money, are they so valuable? It depends on who you sell it to. Zhao Liaolang was a little complacent. He glanced at them. I know, you came back with a lot of good things this time, and there are so many things in the capital, you want to shoot them all, it's impossible. Man Baodao, we didn't want to do it all in the capital. In a month or two, when the weather warms up, my family will go back to Mianzhou, and then I will bring some of them to Yizhu. Zhao Liaolang, Yizhu can't eat it, right? Even if you eat it, the price will not be very high. Zhao Liaolang was afraid that Zhou Man would say you can eat it, and immediately said, you can't keep so many things in your hands for 3 or 2 years before you shoot. Bai Shan glanced at him and asked, do you want to help? Zhao Liaolang smiled and said, a classmate, I can still help you if you speak. He didn't want others to know, so he kept his voice low, and now he just put his arm on Bai Shan's shoulder and whispered to them, if you don't worry, give me some, I'll give it to you. Sell it, and come back and invite me for a glass of water and wine. Bai Shan shook his head, you don't have to. I'll set a price for you. You can sell it. The extra money is yours. You can just give us the price we set later. Zhao Liaolang raised his eyebrows, reached out and patted his shoulder and said, good brother, I have written down your feelings. Bai Shan shivered and pulled his hand down, don't, it sounds terrible. See you tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2367. Zhao Liaolang found an income for himself, he was refreshed, and he didn't care much about the money he bet today. As a result, this time it was Zikong and Zikong. Zikong took the lead and won the championship for him. 12-2 bets won. Zhao Liaolang became happy and immediately said to them, I am happy today, please eat sheep. There are roast sheep in the horse farm, the whole one. So when they returned to their positions, a man from the horse ranch brought a freshly roasted lamb over, and the cook who followed him thoughtfully sliced mutton for them. Zheng Shi was very curious, but before he had time to eat, many wives and young ladies in the racecourse came over. Originally, they didn't know that Zhou Man was here, but there were 5 consecutive games just now. Now that he knew, he naturally wanted to come over to say hello, so the wife of this family came, and the wife of the other family also brought her daughter. Some people in Manbao knew him, and some people didn't, but Mrs. Zheng had been with the old lady for the past 2 years. There are even more people in Beijing socializing. So the two sides greeted each other with respect. Those who came to say hello were naturally related to Zhou Man because their husband or father and brother were officials of the same dynasty with her, but they also came because they had some relationship with the Bai family. There were too many women coming over, and Bai Shan was squeezed into the corner for a few moments, then squeezed from the corner to the outside, and then squeezed from the outside to the next position. A few people huddled there to look at the tightly blocked door. The back of this position was blocked by a screen, but there were bamboo mats on the left and right sides, so there were too many people. He got up, gave his place to this group of female relatives, and followed Bai Shan and the others into the corner. Several big men and small men looked at each other and laughed a little. Bai Shan saluted and apologized first. After all, because of their family, they occupied a good position for them. The two families didn't care very much, and said with a smile, Bai Xianzi is polite, Master Zhou is rejuvenating, and it is a matter of course to be popular in the capital. This is not a bad thing, and it is also our honor to be able to cede the position to you ladies. Bai Shan glanced at his mother, Man Bao, and Zhou Liru who were surrounded by them, and felt that they would not be able to come out for a while, so he simply invited the guests on both sides and said, "Why don't we find another place to sit? How about a drink, please?" Zhao Liaolang smiled and said, "Just go to our place, it is also spacious. Everyone has no opinion, so go." Zhao Liaolang's identity was doomed that his position would not be bad. Unfortunately, it was right next door to Sujian's position. As soon as he entered, Lu Yu, who was staying inside, rushed over with a smile and saw Bai Shan He. Bai Erlang smiled for a while, but he immediately raised his smiling face and complained to Zhao Liaolang first, "You guys are finally back, and you told me to watch the situation here. You went to see the beauty next door, why did it take so long to come back?" Then he greeted Bai Shan and Bai Erlang, "We haven't seen each other for a year. Why don't you invite everyone to drink when you come back from the western regions? In fact, I invited a few close friends, such as Feng Zong, Ping Yixiang and Zhao Liaolang. The rest don't have many feelings, and some are not in harmony, so naturally I don't invite them." But Bai Shan didn't say anything, he just saluted and apologized, and said with a smile, "It's unfortunate that we came back, just in time for the Chinese New Year, not only we are busy, but everyone is also busy, so we didn't invite, and when the Mingjing exam is over, we will please be kind to everyone." "That's right," Bai Erlang pulled Lu Huan as an excuse, "he still has an exam, so he doesn't have time to drink with us now." Lu Yu slandered, "He didn't have time to drink, but did he have time to come to the race course?" Zhao Liaolang was happy today, so he waved his hand and ordered a lot of food and beverages. Seeing that the fight was still going on, he asked Lu Yu, "Is it finished yet?" "Lu Yu, come on, they tied the ball, Yu Zhang won the second game again, so many people bet, so it was extended for a quarter of an hour, I think Yu Zhang is going to win a little bit, promise, the ball it's in Wei Fenjiayuan's hands." Zhao Liaolang was not very happy, but Ma Run was very happy, but he just grinned and didn't show it very much. At this moment, the situation on the field suddenly changed. The ball in Wei Fenjiayuan's hands was snatched by Yu Jiang's men. With a high shot, the ball was knocked flying from the top of their heads. He caught it, slid the ball and ran a few steps forward, dodging a few horses chasing after him, then waved his hand and hit it straight out, and the polo flew in. Many people in the stands cheered. Zhao Liaolang was stunned for a moment, then patted the table and shouted, "Good shot." At the same time, a loud shout came from not far away, "Grandma, how did Wei Fenyuan play? Are you sleeping right away? The ball in his hand can be snatched away, ouch." How, when are you still watching polo? You should be quiet and see a doctor." Zhao Liaolang felt that the voice was familiar, so he pulled up the bamboo curtain and looked over there, and said to the person next door, "Oh, it's the son of the Kui family, pull the curtain over there." Kui Gongzi and others next door glanced at Zhao Liaolang, and the leader said, "Don't look, next door is Su Xiaogong." That being said, Kui Gongzi still asked the servants to roll up the curtain, so the three people met frankly. At a glance, Bai Shan saw Sujian, who was sitting in a cold sweat, and Dr. Ding, who was sitting beside him. Bai Shan blinked, and Dr. Ding also blinked. Bai Shan is worried, Sujian won't really relapse, right? Dr. Ding withdrew his hand and said, "My grandpa has eaten badly. At this time, you must avoid meat and alcohol. I will give you another recipe." Sujian let out a ha and asked him, "I'm eating a bad stomach, isn't it a relapse of an old disease?" More than a dozen people in the three positions all looked at Dr. Ding in unison. Dr. Ding felt a little stressed, but nodded, and said, "Yes, it's because you have eaten badly, young master, now is the time of the season change, there are many gastrointestinal diseases in the spring, and your health is not very good, so you should pay attention to your diet." Some. Dr. Ding looked at the drinks on the table, and then smelled some fat powder on Sujian's body, he couldn't help but said euphemistically, "You need to rest more, so that your body can take good care of you." Sujian turned his head to look at the next door, said hey at Bai Shan, and asked, "You wrote the last two words on the little note that I just passed over?" There are two kinds of handwriting on the note, and Sujian once saw Zhou Man and the others ZZ in the prince's place. Although there is no comparison, the two characters are different in style, so they are easy to recognize. Bai Shan nodded with a smile, "Yes, the young master is not in good health, so it's better to follow the doctor's advice." See you at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2368. After Bai Shan finished saying this, Sujian had another abdominal pain. Although Dr. Ding said that he had eaten his stomach, as long as he thought that his stomach had been opened, he felt a pain and his face turned even paler. The fox friends on the side were frightened, and they didn't care about his face anymore. They immediately said to Bai Shan, "Bai Xianzi, Lord Zhou is also here, why don't you ask Lord Zhou to help the young master?" Dr. Ding touched Sujian's stomach. Seeing that he was in such pain, he was a little uncertain for a while. Could it really be a recurrence of the old injury? He also looked at Bai Shan. If there was only Sujian, Bai Shan wouldn't accept it even if he didn't reject it, but it was different with Dr. Ding. He and Man Bao were close friends after all, and Bai Shan didn't want him to be embarrassed. So after thinking about it, I got up in person, "Okay, I'll go invite someone." Bai Shan brought the guards to invite him, and the friends were moved when they saw it, and felt that Bai Shan was willing to go personally for Sujian's sake. Bai Erlang and the others sat still. Seeing the emotion on their faces from a position in the middle, Bai Erlang couldn't help but ask Yin or a few in a low voice, "What are they moved by?" Yin Yu said, "Don't talk." Even Zhao Liaolang whispered, "Come on, let's have a drink." Bai Erlang glanced at the wine in front of him and shook his head. He didn't like drinking, and he had a headache when he was drunk, and he was not happy at all. Zhao Liaolang didn't force him, and said with a smile, "Uncle himself is a wolf, but he likes to choose a son-in-law according to the sheep." Bai Erlang stretched out his foot and stepped on his instep, "Who do you say is a sheep? Don't even drink wine, what are sheep? Do you still expect you to be a wolf? Bai Shan doesn't like to drink, why don't you talk about him?" Zhao Liaolang said, "He is not a sheep, he is a sheep, and he is also a black-hearted sheep." Is it because of Sujian that the next door is still going to be Bai Shan himself? Of course not. Just assign a servant to go over to invite Zhou Man, and it is Zhou Man who is despised. He goes there in person and respects not only Sujian, but also Zhou Man. And he went there in person, who knew what he would say to Zhou Man? Bai Shan Zheng told Zhou Man about Sujian's situation, so as to avoid her jumping to conclusions and misjudging in the past. Dr. Ding felt the pulse and said that there was a problem with his diet and his stomach was not good. You can see that his old injury has recurred. Man Bao shook his head, "I didn't see it." Bai Shan, "Then you give him such a doctor's order." Man Baidao, "That's a normal doctor's order. His injury should stop drinking within 3 years. At that time, I told the Su family to drink less alcohol after 3 years. It's not a minor injury. I see him drinking 1 cup after another, without restraint. Even if the old injury is not happening today, the old injury will happen in the future." Man Bao followed and went to the middle of the stand. The stewards of the racecourse had arrived and were waiting in front of Dr. Ding in a cold sweat. He just found out that this grandfather is not an ordinary person, the prince's brother-in-law, the future uncle of the country. If he has 3 strengths and 2 weaknesses in the racecourse, not to mention the prince, even the Su family can't get along with him. Although this horse farm also has a share of the Su family, but this is even more terrifying. Is there any? So he came here in a hurry to wait. As soon as he saw Zhou Man coming, he immediately greeted him with bright eyes, "Dr. Zhou, it just so happens that you are here. If you are tired, you can check whether it's okay for the young master. Sujian's lips were already white from the pain, and he didn't have the strength to stop Joe Man from seeing a doctor, and deep down he didn't really want to stop him, so when Joe Man came up, he covered his stomach with one hand and stretched out his hand to show her. Man Bao felt the pulse, looked at his face and lips again, and reached out to touch his stomach. Is it hurting here? She pressed it gently, and he made an ah sound, and Man Bao changed positions. Here. Sujian's face suddenly turned pale, even more pale and colorless, leaning on the couch, speechless. Man Bao regained his energy, continued to press there gently, and asked, "Does it hurt here?" Sujian could only make a soft sound, and Man Bao couldn't help but go to see Dr. Ding, who also opened his mouth wide. The two suddenly tightened their backs, and immediately got 2 points closer, unbuttoning his belt directly, exposing his abdomen to see where Zhou Manke pressed it. Dr. Ding immediately asked, "Little master, when did you start to have abdominal pain?" Sujian was speechless, and his servant immediately said, just now, just now." He thought about it and said, "Just after receiving the doctor's order from Lord Zhou." Man Bao. She didn't expect her doctor's order to become an incentive. She immediately said, "That was more than an hour ago, and this is too fast." "It's an acute intestinal carbuncle." Dr. Ding began to rummage through his medicine cabinet. "I only brought pochai pills, no other medicines." The steward immediately squeezed in and said, "We have some medicines in the storeroom of the race course. Please write a prescription for what medicines you need, and let's see if there are any medicines." Man Bao said to Dr. Ding, "Is there a needle?" Dr. Ding gave her the needle package, and Man Bao took the needle and started to prick him. "What did you eat today?" It was still the servant on the side who replied, "Our family Lang Jun ate hu cake, a bowl of small noodles, 3 small steamed buns, 2 eggs, and a bowl of goat milk in the morning, and then came to the race course." "Right, I ate it. Roast beef and rabbit, and some drinks." Thinking that such a reply was not specific enough, he said, "About 2 pots of wine are not intoxicating wine." Man Bao was speechless for a while. Dr. Ding had already found pochai pills and put him in a pill before finding a pen and paper to prescribe. "Dr. Zhou Xiao, what do you think of the Wang peony soup?" Man Bao said while piercing the needle, "Yes, I think his body is hot and humid, and it is better to add Pagionco, Hediotis diffusa, and dandelion together." Dr. Ding considered it for a while, and said, "Then it will be better with red vines." Man Bao's needle paused for a while, then nodded after thinking about it, "Yes, let's open it like this first." Dr. Ding gave the prescription to the steward, but the steward copied another copy and took it to the warehouse of the race course to find the medicine, and at the same time let people go back to the city quickly to get the medicine, in case the warehouse is not here. Dr. Ding handed over the prescription, and then went to see Zhou Man for acupuncture. Seeing her constant deep stabbing to relieve the pain, he nodded slightly, thinking that he could only fight on the side. He stared at Sujian's face. Although his face was still pale, it had lost 2 points of cyan, so it shouldn't be very painful. Sure enough, he groaned slowly, not the kind that he couldn't even speak at first. The onlookers didn't know, and thought he was getting more and more uncomfortable, and couldn't help looking at Zhou Man anxiously. See you at 9. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2369. Experts look at the doorway. After Zhou Man pulled out 2 needles, Dr. Ding said to the onlookers, "Okay, people are all right for now. Take the medicine and take a look when it arrives." Sujian still had needles in his stomach and waist. Hearing this, he asked, "What do you mean by having a look?" The friends who didn't quite believe that Sujian was getting better saw that he could speak, so they let go of their hearts and looked at Dr. Ding curiously. After hesitating for a while, Dr. Ding said, "Intestinal carbuncle, it can also be treated with decoction, but for emergencies like Xiaogong guys, most of the abscesses between the intestines are serious, so it is necessary to clear the bowels to drain the pus, and Dr. Zhou uses acupuncture again. It can be said to be an excellent therapy for Xiaogongai to sort out the meridians and purify the qi, and it should be effective after the medicine is given, and the needle should be used once every other day for the next 10 days, and it should be cured. But if the painkiller is removed after taking the medicine and the situation has not improved significantly, it means that the small intestine at the abscess may be necrotic, so it can only be cut off. Everyone's eyes widened. Sujian almost moved back, and asked in shock, are you going to open my stomach? Dr. Ding immediately reassured him, don't worry, little master, it's just a small opening, the sword doctor does this, and Dr. Zhou can even open the abdomen and take the child, such a bowel cleansing technique is naturally worthless. Carry. That's because it's not your stomach. Sujian was not happy, and he didn't even bother last time, because it was at stake, and he was in a coma. This time he wouldn't say anything, unless, choose. Man Bao sat aside and reassured him, it's okay, it's not certain yet, maybe it's not necrotic, it's just an abscess, and it may be cured. The big deal is that I won't be on the Lantern Festival tomorrow, and I'll still go to your house to give you a needle. Already. Man Bao's comfort made him feel a little better. He didn't dare to move, and asked, Dr. Zhou, would you like to give me a few more injections? Man Bao, no need, the more needles the better, I'm afraid I'll give you more needles. The steward quickly ran over and happily told them that there was medicine in the warehouse, which had already been caught and boiled, and it would be ready to drink after another quarter of an hour. So many people sat or stood staring at Sujian's belly, and even Mr. Kui next door and others all leaned against the screen and stared at Sujian's belly. This is the first time they have seen Zhou Man see a doctor, not to mention, they still have a different feeling in their hearts. Looking at Bai Shan, who was standing beside him, he didn't seem to react at all to Zhou Man touching other men's stomachs. He even took out a handkerchief from himself and soaked Zhou Man in water to wipe his hands, then leaned against hers. He asked him, if you need to open your stomach and clean your intestines, where should you clean your intestines? Man Bao thought for a while and said, of course Ji Shitang is the best, but if he doesn't want to, he can stay at the Su family. Bai Shan asked, where to cut? Man Bao just clicked on the deepest place where he was stabbed, just here, it doesn't need to be a big one, just a small hole. He also comforted Sujian, who had an unsightly face, look, it's far from your original wound, and it won't overlap. Everyone looked intently, and saw a long and meandering wound in the clothes he lifted up, and it looked like it was stitched up before. Everyone swallowed. After the medicine was delivered, Man Bao did not take the remaining needles, and let him drink the medicine directly. After drinking it for a while, he was going to run to the toilet, and Man Bao pulled the needle out for him. Man Bao and Dr. Ding just sat and waited. After he was helped back, they took a pulse and pressed on his stomach again. After seeing his reaction, they congratulated him, it doesn't seem to be necrotic, congratulations to you. Sujian breathed a sigh of relief. Man Bao said, don't be in a hurry to relax, so that you can tell the young master that this intestinal carbuncle is caused by improper diet and uncleanness, not to mention that you drank so much alcohol, you had a knife in your stomach, and you lost blood in those days. So much, in fact, has some impact on the body. It seems to be no different from ordinary people on weekdays, but it is necessary to abstain from eating, drinking, and abstinence. Otherwise, things that cannot be tolerated by the internal organs will eventually accumulate into diseases, especially alcohol. It's a big deal. She glanced at the wine on the table and said to him, in the future, the young master should be more restrained. Man Bao has an average relationship with him, and it is only on the face of the prince and the princess that he is willing to persuade again and again, otherwise, why would she persuade in such a detailed manner now? Sujian finally covered his stomach and went home. Dr. Ding turned his head and said to Man Bao, he has to be careful about his illness. If the decoction is useless, cut it off as soon as possible, or it will hurt people to death. Man Bao nodded and said to him, are you going back to the Su family? Dr. Ding smiled and said, the prescription I prescribed is still good, but the acupuncture is far worse than yours. I just saw that the acupuncture you used has 3 more acupoints than I know. The two stood in the stands and discussed. Bai Shan ignored them, dragged Zhao Liaolang in and sat down to eat, and instructed the steward of the racecourse, I will also serve my mother a table of wine and food. The steward bowed down to answer, saying that today Zhou Man and the others' consumption in the racecourse is considered to be the racecourse, and it is regarded as thankings human for the young master. Zhao Liaolang immediately asked, does my expenses count? The manager looked embarrassed, oh, young master Lu, this is a small business. Zhao Liaolang sneered, it's just a small business here, okay, it's not difficult for you, get out. The steward gave a happy hey and then stepped back. Man Bao and Dr. Ding chatted about the intestinal carbuncle for half an hour, and stayed here for lunch before letting him go. Man Bao and the others stayed until the evening. Not only did they watch several polo games, but they also went off to race the horses in person. Mrs. Lu came to find her for the game. She didn't get a place. Zheng Shi also rode a horse for a lap, mainly because he made a lot of friends this time. Everyone exchanged door notes, and made an appointment to go out for tea next time and go shopping in the flower street. It's a real flower street, the peonies are about to bloom, and it's time to fight flowers once a year. Zheng's face was still full of excitement when he returned home. Bai Shan smiled and said, if mother likes it, we will take you out next time. This time, Zheng Shi no longer hesitated, but said softly, if I don't disturb you, I will follow along and play. Just after entering the door, Wu Wulang and the steward came over together. Man Bao, you are finally back, there are guests at home. Man Bao asked, who? It's the steward of the Duke of Pai, who brought a box of silver. Wu Wulang said softly, I said I want to invite you to visit their young master to see a doctor. If you're not at home, I don't know if I should pick it up or not. I have never dared to accept it. The steward was also going to report the matter, but what he said was, the little one wants to send someone to invite the young master and Miss Man back, but the steward stopped him, saying that it is not good to disturb Miss Man when the Lantern Festival is coming, and let him, we don't have to ask, he'll just wait at home, so the condition should not be urgent. Man Bao was relieved when he heard it, and looked at Bai Shan, guessing that it was for the follow-up treatment. Starting to add more tomorrow, for the monthly pass, Red Duck. Well, so I'll be lazy again tonight, see you tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2370. Chapter 2352 Curse. When Sujian was sent back to the Duke of Pai, his stomach still hurt, but it didn't hurt as much. He was still able to walk with the help of the servant. But he was in a bad mood, especially when so many people watched the treatment process, so when he got home, he lost his temper and was unwilling to leave. The person was carried in. The friends who sent him back didn't think there was anything wrong, but they saw his pale face and the pain that he couldn't even speak. They thought he was in severe pain now, so they followed him and shouted. The servants of the Su family carried the person in while asking for the imperial doctor. Although Zhou Man had seen it in front of them, the follow-up treatment was definitely needed. Whether it was to invite Zhou Man or another imperial physician, he had to go now. Sujian is not the Duke of Pai, so if he wants to ask an imperial doctor, he is afraid that he will have to wait in line. Mrs. Paikwagong came to hear the news and saw her son being carried and moved to the couch. Tears could not help flowing, but she held it back, stepped forward, and asked, "Did you fall or what? Why did you go to the race course again? Didn't I tell you not to play polo, not to play polo again? Your legs and stomach." Mrs. Paikwagong paused and looked at her son up and down, and saw that he didn't find anything wrong with his face, except that his face was a little bad. The key is that his clothes were still neat and he didn't look like he was wrestling or falling from a horse. "Don't worry, ma'am, the young master didn't end, he has abdominal pain." "That's right, he's eaten his stomach." Mrs. Paikwagong breathed a sigh of relief, and her face looked much better in an instant. "It turns out that you have eaten your stomach. Oh, you are too old to eat, you know it's uncomfortable now. Come on, go and boil a bowl. Hawthorn soup is here for the young master to digest." Hu Peng and Go friends were shocked and quickly stopped. "Madam, this medicine is not taken indiscriminately, the young master just took the medicine prescribed by Lord Zhou, and I don't know if it will conflict. Why don't you ask someone to ask the doctor before you talk about it?" Mrs. Paikwagong was curious. "Master Zhou? Which Master Zhou? Who else can Master Zhou in the capital be able to prescribe prescriptions?" "Naturally, it's the imperial physician of the imperial hospital. Isn't it because the officials in the Chongquen Pavilion are bigger than the officials in the Taiyuan Hospital, and the people in the world call them with respect, and they all call the big officials?" Mrs. Paikwagong smiled and said, "I didn't expect Imperial Physician Zhou to be so polite, and she would even go to the horse farm to show you a small problem like a bad stomach." Sujian. Who friends and dog friends? Sujian's servant fell to his knees on the ground with a thud, crying and said, "It's the slave's fault, the madam should punish the little ones." The smile on Mrs. Pai's face faded, and she asked, "What's wrong?" The servant told the danger of Sujian's illness. Mrs. Paikwagong's expression changed after he said that Sujian's stomach pain was due to intestinal carbuncle. "After I heard that if the intestines were necrotic, they had to open the stomach and clear the intestines." The complexion was even more ugly. She was so angry that she pointed at the little servant and scolded, "That's how you serve the master? He's not good, and you don't know how to persuade him. What's the use of asking you?" He turned his head and scolded Sujian again, "I told you to quit drinking and quit drinking, but you just didn't listen. Do you have to let your father break your leg to be obedient?" Sujian lowered his head and did not speak. His friends quietly backed away, turned around and ran away after exiting the room. Mrs. Paikwagong is too scary. Mrs. Paikwagong wanted to beat Sujian herself, but when she raised her hand, she saw that he was pale and reluctant to attack, so she could only continue to point at his nose and curse. When the third wife heard the news and brought the child back from outside, she couldn't help crying when she heard the words scolded by her mother-in-law. After learning the contents of Zhou Man's doctor's note from the servant, he cried even louder. Mrs. Paikwagong was already angry, but now she was even more angry. She couldn't help turning her head and yelling at her, "Why are you crying? He's not dead yet, you won't be too late to cry when he's drunk, who are you crying for now? Look." The third wife stopped crying and lowered her head with a sob. Mrs. Paikwagong asked people to take the post of Paikwagong to ask for an imperial doctor, and then glared at Sujian and said, "The imperial Dr. Zhou has repeatedly told you to drink less and have less fun, you are in front of me and your father. You deserve a good face, just turn your back and fool us like this, I. Mrs. Paikwagong clutched her chest, and the third wife turned pale in shock, and quickly went to support her. "Mother, calm down, the third master knows he is wrong." Sujian didn't care about the stomachache anymore, and quickly said, "Yes, my son knows it's wrong." After a while of tossing and fussing about the Duke of Pai's mansion, he finally invited Thai Dr. Xiao Tan from the Imperial Hospital for a look. It was confirmed that it was a bowel carbuncle, but it was still a serious and urgent condition. Even Tai Xiao Tan had no good solution. The suggestion is also, eat the decoction first. If it can't be relieved tomorrow, it will be necrotic, and you can only open the stomach and clear the intestines. But for the ulcer doctor, the most powerful doctor in the hospital is Zhou Tai. Mrs. Pai Kuagong immediately asked, I heard that it can be supplemented with acupuncture. Thai Dr. Xiao Tan smiled and said, yes, but this acupuncture is also the most powerful. Dr. Zhou, I just asked the young master, the total number of needles that Thai Dr. Zhou gave him today was 8, one of which was a deep puncture. It should be used for pain relief. The remaining 7 needles, because Xiao Gonggai can't remember the specific location, so the lower official can't think of a specific method of acupuncture. The acupuncture method I know should only be used for 4 needles. That's it. One of the needles is used for deep pain relief, and the other 3 are for regulating qi. So Mrs. Pai Kuagong understood. He couldn't think of the acupuncture method Zhou Man used, so Zhou Man's acupuncture was more powerful. After all, Zhou Man is far superior to everyone in the Thai hospital, including Xiao Yuanzhen's 3 skills. One is abdominal surgery, the other is acupuncture, and the third is a specific disease to treat infertility. Ahem, the third rule can be ignored. Anyway, it is Sujian's current situation, not only applies to the first type that she is best at, but also applies to the second type, so it is best to invite her. However, she is not on duty today and tomorrow. Thai Dr. Xiao Tan said, it is Thai Dr. Lu who is on duty at Tai Hospital tomorrow. Therefore, if they hire someone through the Imperial Hospital, it is also Imperial Dr. Lu who is on duty, so Zhou Man can only be invited privately. So Mrs. Pai Kuagong asked someone to bring a box of silver ingots over after thinking about it, and told the steward, be polite, this person is now not just an imperial doctor in the Imperial Hospital, but also compiled from the 4th grade by the Chongquen Museum, and then 2 more you will be able to be on an equal footing with your father-in-law. Of course, this equality is based on real jobs, and the title of grandpa is still very valuable, starting from the 1st rank. But now Duke Pai's real job is 3rd rank, so. After hearing this, the steward came over to invite someone. He was very polite, and Man Bao deserved to be refreshed. He directly took the post of the Duke of Pai and said, then I'll go over with you to take a look. If it doesn't hurt very much tonight, don't worry, I'll give it to him tomorrow. Take a look, get a needle, take medicine. The steward carefully asked what their wife wanted to ask, if it still hurts. Then you can only open your stomach and clear your intestines. It's even more wrong, don't ask me why, it's probably because it's too cold and my brain is frozen. I'll replace it with a chapter now, woo woo. They said that it was because I promised you in the book review area that you would add more updates, so God specially arranged this release. Sure enough, people can't be too untrustworthy. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2371. Man Bao received the money and followed the steward of the Su family to the Duke of Pai's mansion to give Sujian another injection. After reading his pulse, he left a prescription, which was the one he had opened with Dr. Ding at the race course before. Said, to clear the internal organs and purify the heat, this prescription is currently the most suitable for his symptoms, so eat it first. Man Bao calculated the time since the onset of his illness, nodded and said, I think he has no pain before, it should be better, continue to take medicine and acupuncture, but recently, eat a light diet, eat less meat and fish, and don't drink alcohol. It is good. Mrs. Pai hurriedly responded, sent Man Bao to the yard in person, and asked, Dr. Zhou, I heard that you gave my son a doctor's order in the race course. Man Bao said embarrassedly, please don't blame my madam, I just watched the young master drinking and having fun, so I couldn't help but say a few more words. She said, the young master has been seriously injured, and now he looks similar to ordinary people, but in fact, his internal organs are weaker and weaker than ordinary people, so you should pay more attention. You should eat less meat and fish. One is still eating less, not to mention alcohol. Man Bao said, it's not good for people to drink too much alcohol, let alone the young master who has suffered such an injury. Mrs. Pai's wife immediately thought of the prince. Wouldn't the prince also quit drinking when he was treating infertility? She sternly said to Man Bao, don't worry Taijo, I will definitely keep an eye on him in the future. Sujian's illness is not serious, but not too small. It sounds like it's just abdominal pain, but if it is urgent, it will really kill people. Therefore, when imperial physician Xiao Tan returned to the palace, he recorded Sujian's pulse and reported it to Xiao Yuanzheng. The emperor was a little cold, and just called Xiao Yuanzheng to see a doctor. Xiao Yuanzheng informed the emperor about the matter, and said that the Su family had privately invited Zhou Man to see the doctor. The emperor has a good relationship with the in-laws of Duke Pai, so he is quite concerned about Sujian's health, so he said, since Zhou Man is better at this disease, let her take over Sujian's disease. This is a shift to let Zhou Man go out to the clinic. Xiao Yuanzheng replied yes with a smile. The emperor cared about Sujian's body, but he was more concerned about the good minister who helped the prince, so after the reunion dinner in the evening, the emperor called the prince aside and said, Sujian is unbearable, you are giving grace to the crown prince's family, what matters is don't send him on the matter. Prince, the meal is good, why are you talking about his brother-in-law? The emperor raised his eyes and glanced at the prince, why, reluctant. The prince asked, what did Sujian do to make the father angry? No, it's not me who is angry, it's Duke Pai and his wife, the emperor said indifferently, Sujian can't even do a good job of quitting drinking, obviously he's not a person with much self-control, I think he's by your side except obedient. There is no other use, so small things can be dispatched, but big things cannot be trusted. Prince, isn't it okay to be obedient? The emperor glanced at him and said, as a king, you need good and capable ministers, not obedient and mediocre ministers. Of course, there is nothing wrong with keeping one or two by your side. You are comfortable and can show your love, but if you reuse him, you will inevitably occupy the position of other good officials, which is naturally not good. I know that Sujian is your companion, and you have feelings with him, but you can't be emotional in matters of the country. It's time to change some people around you, the emperor said, I don't want to interfere with your confidence, what should I use? You can make up your own mind, but Sujian can't stay by his side anymore, find an opportunity to send him out. Sujian's companion is different from other companions. Like Bai Shan, although he is also the prince's companion, after they entered the school, the prince only took 5 classes in the Changguan Hall, including 1 lesson. It was Mr. Zhuang who taught alone. At first, he would find opportunities to take his companions to the martial arts field to play. After his son was born, his status was stabilized, and he basically stopped playing with them. Sujian is different. Sujian accompanied him to study when he was a child. There were 5 companions around the prince. In the end, 2 were not with him. When he was the most difficult, he chose to be neutral. The remaining 3, except Sujian, they were all released early. Sujian was the one who had been by his side all the time. Coupled with the relationship between the crown princess and the crown princess, the relationship between the crown prince and Sujian is even better. Therefore, after hearing the emperor's comment on Sujian, the crown prince was very angry, and felt that the emperor's father belittled his friends and subordinates so much, just like belittle him. The prince finally took his wife and children back to the East Palace with a calm face. When the queen saw it, she said to the emperor, you and Saburo can be coaxed when you talk, but can't you be softer with Dalan? The emperor said, if you want to be an emperor, you have to get used to these angers. This is quite euphemistic. If Wei Ji and the others say it, it will only be more soft. Don't you want to fight with the civil and military of the Manchu dynasty every day? And the emperor felt that he was gentle enough. He even let him choose the replacements he replaced. Not only did he not intervene, he did not even mention suggestions. How tolerant of him! The prince returned to the East Palace angrily, and the concubine also knew the inside story. She was a little disappointed by the emperor's comments on her brother, but she still said to the prince, "His Royal Highness, what the emperor said is not without reason, my brother even takes matters such as his own life and death. Don't worry about it, it's just so difficult to quit drinking. How can you take on the heavy responsibility that His Highness has given him in the future?" The prince had also quit drinking, so he knew how uncomfortable it was, so he said, "It's a matter of quitting drinking slowly. He likes what's in the cup, and suddenly it's very uncomfortable for people to quit. His Royal Highness, he has been injured for 3 years. Joe Man said a long time ago that he cannot drink alcohol because of his injury. Even if he is completely healed in the future, he should drink less, but look at him. I have asked the imperial doctor, and most of the diseases are caused by improper diet." The crown princess said, "How difficult it is to quit drinking, isn't His Highness also quitting? Even a festival like the Chinese New Year is just a taste of His Royal Highness. Why can't he quit?" The prince opened his mouth and asked after a while, "Are you willing?" The crown princess said, "I can't bear it, but I can eat as much rice as I have. The third brother is not capable, and he can't do well in a strong position. It will be bad if he neglects his duty in the end." The prince pondered. The crown princess took the opportunity to say, "His Royal Highness chooses a good place for the third brother, even if the meaning of the monarch and ministers is fulfilled, let him go outside, maybe he will grow up after a few years of experience." This is just the princess's extravagant hope. She and the prince both know that Sujian is already at his age, and his temperament cannot be changed, but as long as he goes out, as long as he is more sensible, Duke and his wife should also be satisfied. The prince banged on the table and thought, but who can take over his errand in the Changguan Museum? The crown princess lowered her eyes and thought for a while, then said, "How do you feel about Bai Shan, Your Highness? See you at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl." Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2372. The prince thought for a moment and then shook his head. Bai Shan has a talent for governing the country. It's not very good for him to stay in Changguan Museum as soon as he leaves office. Such a talent should still be practiced outside, and then transferred back to Beijing in a few years. At that time, whether it is entering the 6 divisions, or the Mengxia province and Zhongshu province, or the lonely East Palace, he can make a difference. Crown Princess, so you think in your heart that her brother is not a talent for ruling the country, why are you angry now? Who does His Highness think is suitable? After thinking about it, the prince said, "This matter is not urgent. The third brother, even if he was sent to the outside world, he has recovered from his illness, and he has to take the Mingjing exam again. After the Mingjing exam, the Ministry of Rights and the Ministry of Personnel will need examiners." The crown princess was still quite regretful. If Bai Shan can stay in the East Palace, then Zhou Man and Zhou Man will be with each other. I heard Mingda and Chang Yu say that the two families have already set a date to get married. The prince is not very interested in the marriage of his subordinates, especially since Zhou Man's marriage has already been decided. What else is there to talk about? So he said, the two of them are not too young, and they should get married. If Chang Yu and Mingda were not filial piety, they would have married last year. Crown Princess, Your Highness, concubine means that after Zhou Man gets married, he will definitely go out with Bai Shan. We can't tell couples to be separated from each other, right? The prince was inexplicable. What's wrong with separating the two places? Are there still few courtiers and husbands and wives who separate the two places? The princess widened her eyes in shock and looked at the prince in disbelief. The prince looked at her inexplicably and didn't quite understand her thoughts. What's wrong? After a long while, the crown princess said quietly, Your Highness, how could the two of them be the same as the others? Prince, what's the difference between the two of them? The crown princess opened her mouth, but she was hesitant to say anything, and it took a long time to find something to say. The officials in the DPRK and their wives and children are separated from their wives and children. One is because the wife has to provide for the parents in the family. Once you have your son-in-law, you can have your concubine follow your husband, but... The princess looked at the prince quietly and said, Bai Shan and Zhou Manke are going to be separated before they get married. Obviously, they can't have children right away. Besides, does your highness see Bai Shan as someone who would take a concubine? The prince said, What does that have to do with me? Whether they take concubines or not is a matter between their husband and wife. Unless Zhou Man is not an official, he can freely choose whether to follow Bai Shan to go abroad, stay in the capital, or go somewhere else. Crown Princess, His Royal Highness is too impersonal. What if Zhou Man also wants to go out with Bai Shan? Not in case. She heard what Mingda and Chang Yu meant. Zhou Man had this plan. The prince waved his hand indifferently and said, It depends on whether she can convince the Imperial Hospital and His Majesty that she is a 5th-grade Imperial physician. The Crown Princess looked at him curiously. Your Highness is willing to let Zhou Man go out? The prince glanced at her and said, Isn't it good for Gu and the East Palace since she left the capital? She is naturally good, but if she has a more important place, Gu will not stop her. She is a court official, not a lonely retainer. Speaking of this, the prince is still very sorry. If Zhou Man is willing to enter the East Palace, it will not be so much a pity, but he also knows that if Zhou Man does not have this spirit, he will not have the current medical skills. Bai Shan is young, he and his father can see the talent in him and know that as long as he grows, he will be a pillar in the future. Zhou Man is naturally the same. Although she is a woman, her intelligence and ability are not inferior to Bai Shan, and her future achievements will not be inferior to him. Let's not talk about it far, just talk about the cowpox method I'm thinking about now. If it works, it's a matter of merit. Of course, it is not only Zhou Man who has meritorious deeds, but also her superiors, who may become the main officials in the implementation of the cowpox method in the future, as well as the current emperor and the prince who manages the imperial physician department. In the future, it will be recorded in the annals as their exploits, if it goes well. Obviously, there are many people who think the same way as the prince, so Zhou Man and the others have done the experiment in Huangchuang. Of course, they don't want anything, and they have cattle, that is, medicine and people. In addition to the high cost of medicine, these things are not very expensive. It's just that Huangchuang has circled a place, and now the house is being built, even on the day of the Lantern Festival. For the Imperial Physician's Office, there is nothing bigger than this. Even though Sujian received condolence gifts from the palace one after another, the Imperial Physician's Office did not let Zhou Man absent from work to treat Sujian. Man Bao could only go home after going home to see Sujian at Su's house. Sujian's stomach pain got better after 2 days, but Man Bao felt that the abscess had not completely disappeared, so he still gave him an injection every other day and took 2 medicines a day. After such a 10-day period, Man Bao said, It's all right, just pay attention to your diet in the future. Sujian breathed a sigh of relief. He had been eating lightly for the past few days, but he was still drinking medicine. His mouth was so bitter that it was like putting a layer of Coptis chinensis on his tongue, which was particularly uncomfortable. It was time to understand the ban, and his whole face lit up. Man Bao couldn't help but exhorted, in the future, drink less and pay more attention to your diet. Sujian waved his hand and said, I know, come here, send Lord Zhou out. After thinking about it, he simply stood up, I'll send Lord Zhou out. Man Bao took the medicine box, shook his head and refused, No, I'm familiar with the way, so I can go out by myself. Little master, please rest more. Sujian always felt what Zhou Man's words meant. Zhou Man is indeed very familiar with the Su family. After all, 3 years ago, Sujian was seriously injured, and Man Bao stayed at their house. This time he came here for another 6 days, isn't he familiar? After Man Bao came out, she didn't go home immediately, but took the medicine box to see Mrs. Pai Kuagong. She recently developed a new patient. Every time she came to give Sujian an injection, she stopped by to give Mrs. Pai Guo's injection. A bundle. Mrs. Pai Guo's wife is old, and has been very angry recently, so her health is also a little bad. Seeing Zhou Man, Mrs. Pai Kuagong smiled and beckoned her to her side. The imperial Dr. Zhou came just right, and some rewards came from the palace. I think the color of the satin is suitable for the imperial Dr. Zhou. Send it to imperial Dr. Zhou. Man Bao immediately declined and smiled. This is given to the old lady in the palace. How can I win people's love? How can an old lady of mine wear such fresh clothes? It's still suitable for imperial physician Zhou. Man Bao said, isn't there another 3 wives? There are also the little ladies in the house. I think this color is suitable for them too. Mrs. Pai Kuagong just smiled and insisted to transfer it to Man Bao. Man Bao was not good at refusing, and seeing that he had not pushed back 3 times, he stopped pushing. Mrs. Pai Kuagong smiled with satisfaction. She liked Zhou Man, and she kept it when she should receive the gift. There was no need to be polite, and the gift giver was also happy. See you at 9. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2373. Man Bao finally went home with a pink satin. Bai Shan strolled around the garden and saw it, so he went up to look at it curiously, and asked, is it given by the Duke of Pai again? Man Bao nodded, and it's a gift from the palace. Bai Shan raised his eyebrows, reached out and touched the satin, and found that the quality was indeed very good. He was a little curious. It's strange, there are too many rewards from the Duke of Pai recently, and the prince and the concubine don't even need to give it. Even the Majesty and the Queen have rewarded some things from the Duke of Pai, and there are instructions for Sujian. Medicinal herbs. Man Bao said, that's why the hospital has been talking about it recently. The Su family is so adored and favored, and even Zhao Kuagong's mansion can't compare to it. Bai Shan was delighted. How is this possible? Zhao Kuagong. Bai Shan paused for a while when he said this, and couldn't help touching his chin. It's a bit strange. Recently, the rewards of the Duke of Pai have been so many that it is a little abnormal. It is a little unusual to say that His Majesty relies heavily on the Duke of Pai, but I must say that he relies heavily on him. I don't believe that Duke Pai crossed Duke Zhao. Bai Shan asked, who is it for? Duke Pai, or Duke Pai's wife? After thinking about it, Man Bao said, I heard the comments from the servants of the Su family. Some are for Duke Pai and some are for Mrs. Pai, but no matter who it is, there seems to be a reward for Sujian. Bai Shan, why reward him? Condolences, Man Bao said, I heard that there are medicinal materials in the reward. Bai Shan couldn't believe it. What kind of honor is it to eat a bad stomach? It's actually rewarding one after another. Bai Shan said this for a while, and if he thought about it, if he was not rewarded for glory, it was because of compensation. Bai Shan was a little unsure. He glanced at Man Bao, but still didn't say anything. Man Bao didn't have time to think about these chores, so she packed her luggage 2 days later and went directly to Huangchuang. Because the cowpox has matured and scabbed, they will collect the scabs in the next 2 days, and then prepare to inoculate people. This time, the number of people vaccinated is more, and the test is more systematic, So people need to watch it all the time. After discussions in the Taiyuan hospital, Zhou Man and Tai Lu were chosen to be responsible for the matter together. Both of them will live in Huangchuang, and the Taiyuan hospital will not need them for the time being. That's why there were so many people in this test, so once people entered, they couldn't get out. The four of the cakes were clamoring to go with them, and Man Bao said, "I'm going to work, not to play." "What are you doing?" "Serve you." Man Bao immediately shook his head, "I'm alone, where do I need four people to serve?" But Xiao Qian said, "Why don't you bring two people with you? You can't get out of the house, you always need someone to cook you some food that suits your appetite, and you have to wash your clothes. You are so tired, you can't get out. Worry about these things." The four cakes looked at her eagerly. Man Bao looked at Xiao Qian. Xiao Qian whispered to her, "Take Julan, she cooks deliciously, and she can also bring cakes. I think she is very good at dancing swords, so she should be able to fight." "Man Bao, sister-in-law, why are you fighting?" Little Qian said in a low voice, "Be prepared for anything like smallpox. What if someone who doesn't want to reach out and hit you? Anyway, Xiao Qian thinks that whoever dares to plant smallpox on her, she will beat people, maybe even kill people." Man Bao. Man Bao was hit hard, and whispered to Bai Shan in private, "I'm still thinking about planting the people in our family after the cowpox method is confirmed. I planned it too, so it's safer to go out this way, who knows, sister-in-law? You want to kill me?" "Bai Shan, she didn't want to kill you, she wanted to kill the person who killed her." Facing Shang Manbao's gaze, Bai Shan's voice became less and less, and he was speechless. "That said, it seems more ambiguous." Bai Shan paused for a while and then said, "I heard that Honey Heart Hall has a new kind of dim sum. It's very delicious. I'll buy you 2 boxes. How about you take it to Huangzhuang to eat?" Man Bao looked at him with normal eyes, "Okay." Bai Shan let out a sigh of relief. He went to buy dim sum, and together with everyone, delivered Man Bao to the gate of Huangzhuang. He handed the 2 food boxes to Julan and instructed, "It needs to be warmed up before eating. Don't let her eat too much in one day. I will ask someone to bring fresh ones later. This is 3 days' supply." Julan bowed in response. Bai Erlang has only one sentence, "Take care of yourself, I will eat the pancakes and pancakes made by your sister-in-law for you." Yin Or said with a smile, "Lu Huan sent a letter saying that he can't come to see you off." Lu Shangshu stared at him very closely. "He shouldn't be able to come out before the exam, and I don't know who of the 2 of you will come out first." Man Bao said to himself, "Of course it's me." Zhou Lijun hesitated for a moment and then said, "Little aunt, we thought we'd go back to our hometown in February, then." Man Bao, "I must come out." Zhou Lijun breathed a sigh of relief and smiled, "That's good, I still want to check with you. Recently, she has sold a lot of gems and spices in the capital, but Zhao Liaolang should be the one who sells the most." Zhou Lijun glanced at Bai Shan, and the goods came from Bai Shan, but a sum of money will be sent every other day in the past few days, and the money is still a lot. Obviously Zhao Liaolang sold more than her, and sure enough he is a senior dude, powerful, and he has a lot of connections. Man Bao waved his hand and said, "If I don't go out in time, you can reconcile with Bai Shan or Bai Er. Anyway, the things they brought back from the western regions this time were all handed over to Zhou Lijun after accounting." Zhou Lijun nodded and agreed. Little Qian prepared a lot of food for her, and put them on the carriage for her to bring in. She said, "If you want to eat, ask someone to deliver a letter to your house, and I have it ready for someone to deliver. Anyway, Huangzhuang is not very far from their home, and it will be a few squares after entering the city." Man Bao happily responded, and was still saying goodbye to them. A carriage passed by them. Imperial Physician Lu lowered the curtain and snorted inside, feeling that they were too sticky, as if they were parting from life and death. Man Bao was saying goodbye to everyone, and when he saw Tai Dr. Lu's carriage, he raised his hand to say hello happily. Dr. Lu, you are here too, it's so early. Imperial Physician Lu could only reopen the window to face her, squeezed out a smile and said, it's not as early as Imperial Physician Zhou. He really didn't want to see their sticky appearance, so he looked at the time and reminded, Tutor Zhou, it's getting late, if you don't go in, it will be too late. Man Bao glanced at the sun, nodded again and again, turned his head and waved to everyone, then we're in, you go back. So I got in the car and took Zibing and Julan into the Huangzhuang village. It's too late today, everyone rest early, see you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2374. There are 3 checkpoints in Huangzhuang. In the last checkpoint, no one is allowed to enter or leave except for the people from the Thai hospital. Once the people who are to undergo the vaccination test are admitted, they are not allowed to go out unless they are sure that the acne has been cured. There are rooms built inside. It is not a single accommodation, but a room for 6 people. There are about 50 newly built rooms. Now half of the people living in it, in addition to the testers selected to be vaccinated, there are servants waiting for orders. The Taiyuan Hospital has built a yard here. The main hall is the place for discussion, and the left and right sides are the medicine hall and the consultation room. The things inside are complete, and the necessary things are basically ready. The east and west sides are where they live. If Xiao Yuan Zheng and the others come to check, they will also change their clothes here. However, Man Bao didn't live in this yard, but a small yard next door, where there lived a few servant girls waiting to be dispatched. Man Bao lived in the main courtyard with 2 girls. The courtyard wall is very low, there is no way to do it. The house is built in a hurry. If such a large house is built in half a month, how high can the courtyard wall be? Anyway, Man Bao can see the situation in the yard next door from standing in the yard, so can Imperial Physician Lu. As soon as he tilted his head, he saw Zhou Man's 2 girls were carrying out large and small bags from the carriage. One girl, even a jar of things was unloaded from the back of the car, and it looked like it was a pickle jar. Imperial Physician Lu shook his beard and couldn't hold back. Tian Physician Zhou, we are here to see a doctor, not for a spring outing. Why do you bring so many things? Man Bao was looking at the yard where he was going to live for a long time in the future. Hearing that, he turned his head to look at Imperial Physician Lu, and simply leaned on the fence and looked at his carriage. It's because I'm here to see a doctor that I need to prepare more things. If I go out on a spring outing, I'm not ready for so much. She said, spring outing, if you are short of things, you can spend money to buy them, but there is no place to buy them here. Imperial Dr. Lu, a group of experimenters went from vaccination to acne, and then to whether they can resist smallpox after recovery. The shortest it also takes 12 days, so we can't go out for at least 12 days, you don't have anything to eat, drink or wear at home. Imperial Physician Lu also brought a Chang Sui with him, and Chang Sui also took down 2 large burdens from the car. One was his own clothes, the other belonged to Imperial Physician Lu, and the rest was gone. Man Bao naturally saw it too. She understood it instantly, looked at Imperial Dr. Lu sympathetically, and patted her chest and said, Dr. Lu, don't worry, how about I invite you to eat the steamed pork made by my sister-in-law tonight? Imperial Physician Lu clearly didn't mean this, but under Zhou Man's eyes, everything he said now seemed to be jealous, so he was angry and turned around and left. Man Bao grabbed the courtyard wall and watched him angrily enter the room. Man Bao sighed with sympathy on his face. It's not easy for Imperial Physician Lu. As he is old, he has parents, brothers in the middle, and his wife and children. As a result, he didn't prepare anything at home for a business trip in the first month. Chicken and duck meat, alas. Julan brought 2 wooden basins over and said, Miss Man, You see, this is the wooden basin prepared for the house. Do you want us to bring it from home, or do you want a new one? Let's bring it from home. I'm used to it. The new one should be used by the maids in the yard. If you have it, keep it. It should be useful in the ward area at the back. Julan responded and asked again, Ma'am, what do you want for lunch? The maid can prepare it now. I just took a look. The kitchen is quite well stocked. It's all right, you can prepare, but you can have a snack first, Man Bao said. Take out the dim sum bought by Bai Shan and warm it up, and I'll share it with Imperial Dr. Lu later. This amount exceeded Bai Shan's regulations, but Julan only hesitated for a while, thinking that two people would not eat much, so she went to heat it up. Imperial Physician Lu was in his prime and didn't like sweet food, so this plate of dim sum ended up in Man Bao's stomach. Man Bao took a sip of tea and rinsed his mouth slightly. Then he wiped his fingers, looked outside and asked, Xiao Yuanzheng, why haven't they arrived yet? Imperial Physician Lu sat on the next table and flipped through the list. Hearing this, he raised his eyelids and glanced at her. I thought Imperial Physician Zhou only had snacks and forgot his official business. Man Bao said, I'm prepared for nothing. Seeing this, Xiao Yuanzheng and the others will definitely be late. We will go to the ward to inspect the ward. I'm afraid that we may not be able to come out after the time has passed. I'll have something to eat in advance. Don't panic. Man Bao glanced at the empty plate and said to Imperial Physician Lu, I just invited you to eat, but you won't eat it. Imperial Physician Lu snorted and asked her, which imperial doctor doesn't put 2 pieces of snacks and sugar in his purse? It is prepared to eat when there is no time to eat. Xiao Yuanzheng and the others arrived half an hour later than expected. He didn't explain, but after looking around their courtyard, he nodded and said, okay, let's go see the patient. The patients have been sent to the ward area 2 days in advance, and they are being recuperated according to the practice before Zhou Man. It's just that I gradually added some meat and eggs, and there is enough white rice and noodles to prevent them from starving. Today, the Xiao Yuan is coming here to check the pulse one by one, and screen out those who are not suitable for acne. You don't even need to write a recipe. Xiao Yuanzheng and several people just took a bamboo stick and started. After checking the pulse, they nodded if they were suitable. Find the steward to report back and leave. It's just a pulse examination. Everyone's speed is still quite fast, but no matter how fast they are, there are many people. The imperial physicians were a little hungry, so they took advantage of the time to change to the next ward and took out snacks to eat. Seeing that Zhou Man was in good spirits, he went straight to the next one, and Imperial Physician Lu grabbed her and said, aren't you ready to bring snacks with you? Imperial Physician Lu reluctantly gave her a piece. I'll give you a piece. Man Bao glanced at the dim sum in his hand. It was the unpalatable pastry recognized by the Taiyuan hospital as the best to relieve hunger in the abdomen and relieve dizziness, ganba noodles. It is made by compressing layer after layer of flour, and there is nothing wrong with it other than being unpalatable and toothless. The kitchen of the Taiyuan hospital is mass-produced. The imperial physicians want to take as much as they want. When Man Bao first entered the Taiyuan hospital, he was ignorant and stuffed a lot into his purse. Later, he learned that a piece of cake is only a little bit in the mouth, but put it in a bowl and soak it in water, and a piece the size of half a palm of a child can make a bowl. The effect of filling hunger is excellent. 1 piece is not hungry, and 2 pieces are absolutely full. When Man Bao saw this piece, he immediately shook his head and refused, and took 2 steps back. Thank you, Imperial Dr. Lu, I'm not hungry yet. Imperial Physician Lu floated past her. Of course she's not hungry anymore, she just finished eating a plate of dim sum when it's time. See you at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. For the monthly pass, Red Duck. It's the last day. If you still have a monthly pass that you haven't voted for, look at me. If you keep it after 12 o'clock in the evening, it will expire. So look at me.